Now, Chubby could have a tail, a Chubby could have a wing, a Chubby could have legs. This is my Chubby right here. This is a Conejos River super special Chubby. And so you see the dubbed body underneath, the thick foam body tied on top, the special little sexy silver add-on wing. Now you can see it with the light shining on it. The big hair wing, and of course, rubber legs. Everybody loves rubber legs, especially trout. So this is a Chubby. This is my Terra Narcissus Californica stonefly Chubby, and that's what I'm going to tie tonight. Everybody good with that? Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
And hey, so, Doug, no pressure, but I am recording it, so it'll go on our YouTube page.
Oh, thanks, Deacon. I love you too. So we're going to start with a Tiemco 200R size 6 hook. I've already pushed the bend down, the barb down. You're going to need a pretty thick, say 6 or maybe even 3 orange thread. I'm going to use the Ultra thread in a 210 grade, and this is the color I like. I really don't like the fluorescent orange. It's good when the hatch first starts, but after the fish get stuck a few times, I think duller colors are in your favor. I'm going to use some Rainey's Gorilla Bodies for the size 6 hook. Now, Rainey makes these in all sorts of colors, shapes, and fashions. I'm going to use the dark brown. You're going to need some Montana Fly Company Sexy Floss medium-sized brown legs, which I have already pre-cut. And I'm going to clue all of you in on a new product that I bet none of you know about and use, and that is the Semperfly Dry Fly Poly Yarn. You will never dub a fly again with this. This is cool stuff. And they also make it in a nymph yarn. So if you hate the dub or you're in a hurry, which oftentimes I am, this is your product. Okay, so let me get my thread. We're going to start right up here, right behind the eye of the hook, and put about 3, maybe 4 or 5 wraps in there. Nice solid wraps. Cut off the extra. And then we're going to wrap down in big, wide, sparse wraps. We don't need to cover the hook. We just need a little bit of thread on it to keep the dubbing in place. So I'm going to wrap this thread all the way down just past the barb of the hook. When you push the barb down, it's hard to show. So here's where the barb would be, and I'm going to wrap it past that. Now, the reason I do that is because when I start the dubbing down here, I want that little bitty part of the dubbing on the bend of the hook to stick down in the water, just the way that the adult female mayfly sticks her abdomen down into the water to lay the eggs. I know that's a pretty picky detail, but hey, we want to catch all the fish we can, so we're going to do all the details that we can. Okay, I'm going to take this nice poly yarn dubbing and I'm going to tie it in right where my thread ended. And then I'm going to wrap my thread forward again, big wide loops. Get all the way up here to the eye, and I'm very going to quickly take my whip finisher and put one little whip in so the thread doesn't move around. Now, take this dubbing material and start to wrap a nice even base all the way up the shank of the hook. And you're about to see that when you use a material like this, what would normally take a good 5 minutes of your time to dub all this hook shank, all of a sudden happens in probably 45 seconds. It's also just a nice material. It's variegated, so it's kind of gold to a very bright orange. It just looks a lot like the stonefly. Now, I'm not going to get this too close to the eye of the hook before I tie it off. That's just for logistical reasons. So put about 2 wraps around it and I cut it off. Okay, we're done with that material. Now we're going to put another 2 wraps with the whip finisher. And now we're going to cut the thread off. Now, this is probably maybe the most critical point in tying the fly, and that is getting the body, the foam body that's pre-cut in the right place on the hook shank. I like for the eye of the hook to sit underneath the foam, if you will, about right there. The eye of the hook doesn't stick out past the foam. The eye of the hook lays underneath the foam. And I'm just going to put it up here and measure it. Just get a little, yeah, that looks about right. Okay. Now I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to start to wrap it around the dubbed shank of the hook. 1, 2 times so it will not slip. Now I'm going to do it 3 times. Cut off the spare, lay that foam so that the indentation that's pre-cut right here is in alignment with the thread so that I can wrap the thread over the foam once, twice. Now I'm going to pull it really tight, almost break the thread. 3 times, 4, 5. Roll it underneath and look at it to make sure that it's centered on the foam, which I just did. Now I'm going to take an extra big whip finisher. If you guys don't own one of these and you tie big flies, or you tie big saltwater flies or bass flies, these will save you. I'm going to take my big, extra big whip finisher. It's not so important here. It's important later. And I'm going to whip finish that. Okay, there's my first segment. Oh, over there, there's my first segment. Going to cut it. Now I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to come in this time and wrap the thread around the foam and the hook once, twice. And you see I have a little tag that I'm holding on here 3 times. That I'm holding onto that tag so I can really pull down hard on the thread and it doesn't slip. There's 4, 5 times. All right, let's cut off the spare. And whip finish. Got one more segment to do. Does anybody have any questions at this point? Are y'all still with me?
Still with you, Doug.
Okay, good. All right. And here's my third segment. Again, I'm grabbing the tail of this thread, holding onto it while I wrap around the segmented point in the foam so it will not slide. There's 1, 2. Here's the third wrap down really tight. Cut off the extra. And now I'm going to whip finish it. One, 2, 3 times. Pull it down nice and tight. Cut off my thread. Now at this point in time, it's a good idea to take your fly out of the vise and turn it over and look and see if the dubbed body on the hook shank is centered on the foam. It really doesn't make that much difference. The fly is still going to probably float okay. But just getting it centered makes it that much more eloquent. And I should stop here a second and say the reason I go to this trouble to tie this fly is because it's damn near unsinkable and it's super durable. So if you tie one of these flies on and you just keep it relatively dry, and shake it in powder every once in a while, you could quite possibly catch, I don't know, 3 to a dozen fish on one fly. It's extremely durable. It's extremely floatant. Okay, I'm going to put the hook back in the vise. Now, I have this wonderful material here that is this crinkly, prismatic. I bought it from Orvis years ago. I bought like 3 bags of it because I loved it so much. And I lovingly use it on certain flies. But what I have done is I have cut it into strips and then taken those strips and cut them into wedges and then cut out the corners to get this beautiful looking little wing. So what I want to do is go to the middle segment, tie in my thread once, twice, cut off the extra. Now take this wing and measure it so that it sticks out past the back of the fly just a little bit, just enough that the fish can see it past the body, past the foam body. Then I'm going to wrap the thread over once. And when I do that and pull it tight, there's a little tag here that you can see that's extra that I'm going to pull over and tie it in again on itself. And that just gives it a little bit of extra durability. It doesn't tear away as easily. It's just it's a smart thing to do, let me tell you. Okay, I've got it tied in. I only did 2 wraps. I don't need a lot of wraps because I'm going to add glue. There's my whip finish. 1, 2, pull it tight, cut it off. Now I'm going to add that all important fluffy flutter wing. And I'm going to use some real nice coarse elk hair. And this is what gives the fly the effect of it bouncing around on the water, trying to escape after it's dropped down and laid the eggs on the water. This is when the fly is most vulnerable to the fish, as all of you know, because you're good fishermen. This is my elk hawk. You can use gray, you can use brown. I even use black. This year I've kind of used gray a little bit more, but on this particular production, I'm going to use some that's a little bit more blonde. And I've already cut it and I've already stacked it. And I'm going to pull out some rough butt ends that I don't like. And you see, I've got a pretty good clump there. That's more than half the size of a pencil. Okay, that's a lot, but I want it to float. And make sure, and I'm sure that those of you that tie a lot know this, make sure that whenever you work with hair and tie it in as a wing, that you brush it out with a hairbrush to get that undercoating that can really screw things up. Okay, let's put this hair on top of this fly. And I want this hair to extend just a little bit past the body. Not too much. If you get it too long, then it's going to be a devil to cast. There we go. That looks good. Now I'm going to use the pinch method. I'm going to exchange the materials and I'm going to wrap the thread up and underneath the hair once and then around twice, 3 times. Each time I'm pulling tighter and tighter. There's 4 times. Now I'll let go of the hair. Now the only thing I have to do is get rid of all this stuff up front. Now you can use scissors to do that, but I like to use a razor blade because it's a much cleaner cut. So I take my razor blade and I pull the hair down that I want to keep, and I come down from behind and I cut this. It gives me a nice clean look. Push this hair down again. Sorry, this is not the best camera angle, but I think you get the gist. And then we're going to come in on the other side and do the same thing. Put that razor blade down. Now we take our fine, sharp scissors and we do a little detail work. You don't want to cut that hair that you've just clipped back. You don't want to cut it right flush with the thread. You want it to stick out some so that you can, well, actually you want it to stick out some so it's not going to slide off the thread. Okay, now that's looking a little bit more like the fly we want, I think. Okay, final thing, I'm going to add legs. And we want 2 on each side. You could add 3, but I think 2's the right number. And roll that fly up on its side. Take those legs and bring your thread around them once, twice. Get them nice and straight. I like them kind of towards the bottom of the foam, not in the middle, because then the legs lay on the water better. So there's one set of legs. Let's do the second set. Roll that fly on its side. Bring the thread over once, twice. They look even front to back on both sides. Yes. Okay, now I'm going to wrap one more time, once, twice. Take my big whip finisher. Whip finish these off. Oop, my thread jumped off. Let's try that again. 1, 2 times. Pull it down nice and tight. Take your scissors, go right down, cut it. Yep, that's looking pretty good. I think we could fish with that. Okay, we're going to take one other product I like to use a lot. I like to use Zap-A-Gap in the thin, and I like to put one very small drop right on that first segment where the hair and the legs are at. Very small drop. One. And then I'm going to pull this hair back, and where I tied in that beautiful sparkly wing, I'm going to add a drop there so it won't pull out. All right, friends. Push that wing down. And that's a fancy chubby stonefly. Not chubby Chernobyl, but chubby stonefly. Questions?
Nice, Doug. That looks good.
I think we could fish with it.
If I were a John, I'd eat it.
All right. All right.
Doug, what brand do you like for the foam bodies and how thick are they?
Say that again.
What brand do you like for the foam bodies and how thick?
I like the Rainies, and they don't give you a thickness.
Okay.
You know, what you can do too is take 2 pieces of thinner foam, because these Rainies bodies are pretty thick, Kevin. Some people, you might want it in a thinner variety, especially for a golden stone, but you can take flat foam and cut 2 pieces and then just tie them in together, glue them together, and get your foam body that way too. And you can get a greater variety of color. So, but I really like the Rainy stuff because the foam is good quality and is very buoyant. It's extremely buoyant. Anything else? All
Hey,
right.
Doug, what was that color of the Simperfly floss that you used?
That's the Sunburst Orange.
Okay,
And for the golden stones, I like to use the Golden Olive.
thank you.
Yeah. That's just good stuff. I mean, it makes life a whole lot easier. I hate to be lazy, but time is money. Or time is fishing.
Good to know, because I'm pretty lazy.
All right, that's my end of the deal.
Anybody else got any questions for Doug? Now's your chance. Well, thanks, Doug. That was great. That was a some impressive work with the razor blade too.
Yeah, well, I've done a few of those this year. I should do okay.
You end up with a Band-Aid or two.
Yep.